In his column today, the conservative icon George Will reveals that John McCain may have just lost one of his most important conservative constituencies. George Will, our #1 story, a small C conservative who is often also a big C conservative, suggests that McCain is just too risky. The highlights? McCain is, quote, under the pressure of the financial crisis, behaving like a flustered rookie playing in a league too high. Barack Obama, Will says, is not behaving thusly. In fact, Will says it is not the Democratic candidate, but the Republican, McCain, whose call for firing the SEC chairman makes him guilty of, quote, channeling his inner queen of hearts, you know, off with his head, furiously and apparently without even looking around at the facts, a childish reflex and fact-free slander, a smear that serves as a harbinger of a McCain presidency. His attack ad against Obama, quote, characteristically substituting vehemence for coherence. And the final touch. The more one sees of his impulsive, intensely personal reactions to people and events, the less confidence one has that he would select judges by calm reflection and clear principles, having neither patience nor aptitude for either. It is arguable that McCain, because of his boiling moralism and bottomless reservoir of certitudes, is not suited to the presidency. Unreadiness can be corrected, although perhaps at great cost, by experience. Can a dismaying temperament be fixed? It's not often that we say, let's bring in MSNBC's own Rachel Maddow to explain why she agrees with George Will. So, Rachel, thanks for letting us fulfill this lifelong dream.
Every once in a while, you know, the world spins so fast and catches up with itself. I think that's right, David.
First, can you frame this for us? Give us some idea of how big a deal Will's apostasy is.
I think that this is the political common wisdom of the last 7 years finally becoming true, after 7 years in which it really wasn't true. I mean, after George Bush beat John McCain in the 2000 Republican primary for the presidential nomination, and McCain essentially ran against Bush to Bush's left at that point, and after he lost that election, John McCain certainly went to Bush's left in terms of sort of taking on right-wing elements of the Republican Party. That's where he earned a lot of his maverick stripes for taking on his party. The political common wisdom at that point became John McCain can't get the Republican presidential nomination because John McCain can never bring conservatives along. That political common wisdom hasn't really turned out to be true until now, just because as we see people like George Will, people like David Frum, people like David Brooks, and others finally start to take McCain on in the way that I think a lot of people thought they'd be taking him on much earlier.
And Will is focused on the financial crisis and the types of judges McCain will pick in today's column. But earlier this month, Will also took issue with the selection of Sarah Palin, noting that she has negligible experience. As the Palin pick reflects on McCain, is there a troubling pattern that some conservatives are seeing in all of this?
Well, it's interesting. If you compare the way that George Will responded to the Palin pick, it looks an awful lot like the way he responded to Bush choosing Harriet Miers. George Will, I think, has identified himself as one of the intellectuals in the conservative movement that wants to feel like decisions are backed up by reasoning and by politics, not just by gut, really. He reacted to this much as the Harriet Miers pick, and it's not that George Will has been uncritical of the Bush administration, but that's exactly the kind of decision that he's been uncritical of. I mean, there's two ways to interpret how John McCain picked Sarah Palin. Either somebody told him he couldn't pick Joe Lieberman and Tom Ridge, who he really wanted to pick, and then we ought to know who's giving John McCain orders, or he made it as a gut check move. And we've seen how that worked out with Harriet Miers, with Alberto Gonzalez, with Vladimir Putin, and the list goes on.
Can we infer thereby that Will thinks that McCain lacks a certain maturity, or at least lacks a certain thoughtful temperament?
I think you can certainly infer that. I think he's more than implying it. He's downright saying it. I mean, as you said, the last line of his column today is, can a dismaying temperament be fixed? He calls John McCain flustered. He says he has childish reflexes. This is an issue, I think, that the Obama campaign and even many Democrats outside the campaign have been reluctant to take on directly. This idea that John McCain might have a temperament that is not suited to the presidency, that he might be a guy who you don't really want that close to the nuclear football. And I think that Democrats have danced very carefully around that issue, in part out of respect for his service as a POW, in part wanting to be kept insulated from charges that they're taking him on the basis of his age. But if conservatives are the ones who are going to take this on, I think that means that it is back in play, and this might be one of the things that gets discussed in a mainstream way in the campaign.
When Republicans like McCain and Bush say they're going with their instinct, as you say, the subtext is that they're tapping into something authentic and essential about themselves, something principled and unchanging that Democrats lack. But Will says that it's McCain who lacks, quote, clear principles. At the close of the Bush years, are we now seeing Republicans abandon this claim that you are principled as long as you feel something in your gut?
Maybe we're seeing that from some elements of the conservative movement and some elements of the Republican Party. But I do think that that's a very visceral American form of campaigning, and I don't think we should expect Republicans to leave it behind. I think it's fascinating to see this tension among Republicans, among conservatives, about whether or not that is an okay way not only to campaign, but to govern. This sort of sense of certitude, this sense of instinct, this anti-intellectualism that has been the hallmark of the Bush administration. I think that it's certainly been criticized on the left. To see it criticized on the right is fascinating, and I think it'll be interesting to see if what Will is criticizing McCain for really catches on.
Rachel Maddow. Rachel, a pleasure talking with you, and congratulations on a terrific start to your show.
Oh, thanks, David. I appreciate it.
And that will do it for this Tuesday edition of Countdown. Keith will be back tomorrow. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for watching. Our MSNBC coverage continues now with The Rachel Maddow Show.